meeting. We're missing a couple people. Anyone have any information about John or Anita?
John's coming. I just saw him downstairs.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, he said he was
Okay.
on his way.
So it's the March 26th meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board. I'm Deirdre Conley, the chair, and we are gonna start with general public input. This meeting will be televised and recorded and later available on Chelmsford Telemedia. It's also available by Zoom, but if the Zoom should malfunction in any way and we're unable to continue on Zoom, we will nevertheless continue the meeting, the live component. So starting first with public input, which shall be limited to statements from the public relating to issues within the jurisdiction of the planning board, but that are not currently the subject of any pending public hearing before the planning board. And so is there anyone who'd like to speak in public input? Seeing no one, we're gonna go out of order slightly. We're gonna just take the A&R on Old Westford Road, which we think will be more on the brief side of things before we take the Kate's Corner discussion, which may not be quite so brief.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everybody. Attorney Jim Dangor. I'm from Shea Dangor and Nelson in Billerica. Before you is what I hope to be a fairly straightforward A&R. The property itself is just about 4 acres. We're creating two lots as shown on the plan. Plenty of frontage. It fits your definition of not a subdivision, I guess, if you will, under subdivision control and your rules and regulations. It has frontage on a public way. So we respectfully request that you agree and otherwise endorse the A&R plan that's before you. Pretty straightforward, I hope.
And so each will be in acreage.
More, about one, well, the one will be 2.45, the other will be a little more than 1.5, I believe. So, my apologies.
Oh, that's fine.
Plenty of frontage.
What's it zoned, I'm just curious, what's it zoned as over there, not that it matters.
RB.
RB,
It's RB? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Any discussion? Evan?
No, I would just indicate to the board that the applicant has also filed a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. That hearing will be opening probably within the next couple of weeks.
Because there's wetlands.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak about this A&R? Oh, we don't have
Nope.
to, that's not a public hearing, never mind.
So I can make a motion. I would move that we endorse the A&R with the statement attached to the decision that the endorsement under the subdivision control law should not be construed as either an endorsement or an approval of zoning lot area requirements.
Okay, does this actually fall under the subdivision control? Yeah. Okay, I didn't know where it was written up.
Yep.
Okay. I'll second.
Motion by Chris, second by Mike Raisbeck. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Are you saying aye?
Abstaining.
You're abstaining? Okay. So we have 6 ayes and an abstention.
Very good, thank you. Should I pop back tomorrow or the next day, grab
We'll
it?
sign it tonight. It'll be ready in the office tomorrow morning.
Great, have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
You too. Okay, next up, we have Kate's Corner. Discussion with the neighborhood regarding the current limited industrial IA and/or commercial CB and/or residential RB zoning. Planning board seeking to receive informal input regarding the zoning conflicts and discuss the potential for rezoning. We have in our packet a presentation by Mike and Anita about some concepts, rezoning concepts. You're going to present us this packet, one of you two?
It's actually, Anita did all the hard work.
All right, let me just get my glasses, that one. Apologize for being late. It's at another meeting. Mike, if you want to start, okay, get the presentation up. All right, so if you remember last meeting, we kind of went through and we looked at the uses for this new zone. And we were tasked to go back and now look at the dimensional requirements. So we can look at that on the next slide. Then we can also discuss whether we think it's applicable to COID. And then we can look at, what parcels this includes and next steps. All right, so the districts RB, CA, CB, and IA. And this new, what I'm calling CB Light. Mike and I met this past weekend. We looked at what the comparables were in that area. And we made some recommendations, but the ones highlighted in yellow, we'd like to discuss with the team. Not all that hard. We did have a question, because we were looking at the depth for CB. It says 0.
Yeah. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Is that, that's in the table, right?
Yeah, I see that. It's also in CD. My guess is because many of the CB and CD lots, as they exist, are not very deep to begin with. The depth is defined as you need that number of feet from the frontage back 125 feet or 150 feet. The purpose there is to create as much of a square or a rectangle as possible for lot shape. And then once you're beyond the depth of frontage, then the lot can begin to narrow. So it's just a way to try to create traditional sized lots. But if you look at many of the CB lots and CD lots as they exist, they're not very big to begin with. So mathematically, it must have been determined that the lot depth was a non-starter, so to speak.
All right, so we should look at, probably add that as a highlight of the depth for the CB Light. Considering that we have some lots in that area, we weren't sure if this was just a typo. At the time we were discussing, we're like, is this a typo?
We didn't get it, man. Yeah.
Which is why we recommended the 150, just because it was consistent with IA. And the RB was 150, and then CA was 125, so we assumed that it probably should be around that area, but maybe we might want to look at that.
What would be the harm in just putting it at 0, just like CB?
I would think you would want something that's not right on the road, though, right? Like, you would want something set back.
Yeah.
Well, the building setbacks can be based upon frontage.
Okay.
The depth is more about the shape of the lot.
I don't like the 0.
Can you change that?
I feel like it's nonsensical.
I was just saying, you're not applying it as a requirement, that's all it's saying.
Well, then I would put in
It's like a not
NA.
atypical, right, it's being.
Yeah, the NA would be okay.
Right.
If that's the point.
It'd be very different if we were creating, if it was envisioned that a lot of new lots within the CB Light District were going to be created.
Right.
Most of them exist and they're likely undersized to begin with.
So then would we just put in NA?
NA is fine.
I think that tells the story better.
I just think it makes, it's easier to explain versus,
Yeah.
like, I literally thought that was a typo in when we printed it out.
Yeah, we
When it was 0, I'm like, oh, they must have forgotten, like, a number versus non-applicable. So I'm fine with changing that. I just need my computer to start up.
Maybe we should change it in the other one, too.
Probably should.
Stories, we left at 3, again, because we wanted this to be, it's abutting the neighborhood. We felt that 3 was appropriate since it matches the RB zone. Height, same thing, to match the RB zone, floor to air ratio. We have kept it 45. Coverage,
30%.
30%.
I would just suggest, I think the 30% is likely good for existing CB lots. But depending upon where you apply this, let's assume you're applying it on existing IA zoned properties that abut single family. Those are much larger lots. So I don't want to overcomplicate this, but depending, again, I think it depends on where you're going to apply it. So the specific locations. And same with the side and rear. I think as drafted, the 40 and 30 are picking up from IA.
Right.
So, as
And
an
the coverage
example,
is not.
if you were to look at the existing CB in Kate's Corner, the IA just mathematically doesn't work. The CB works a little bit. And so again, depending upon where you're applying it, many of the CB districts just have smaller lots.
So what is the coverage for the current Lockheed, do we know?
I don't know what the existing conditions are. But once we leave Kate's Corner and you begin to look at other places in town to apply it, I think you'll quickly see that, there's gonna be a difference between CB lot sizes and IA lot sizes.
I think we want that, though, right? Like, we want that not to be as dense.
Yeah.
So that's the goal of it, so that's why we went down by 10%, because you want it to be a gradual density going into IA. So, again, I mean, I understand what your point.
Yep.
And maybe since we have Lockheed here, if they can just take a look at our recommendation and see if this works for you and what you are right now, and maybe provide some feedback would be great.
We can take that action, yes. It's not a problem.
Right, and then final comment on the dimensionals. Most of the lots are gonna be currently developed. CB and Kate's Corner is
Yeah.
currently developed. So when they apply for a redevelopment, they're likely gonna present the existing conditions as a starting point. So generally speaking, for zoning legalities, whatever dimensional requirements you put in here are likely only gonna be applied to a vacant lot. It's not claiming any grandfathered.
Right, or tear down and completely
Even a tear down, if they come in, they say, these are our existing conditions, and here's our proposal, they'll take credit for the existing setbacks. So again, if you look at CB around town and even some of the smaller IAs up in North Chelmsford, Vinyl Square area, the buildings are essentially on the lot lines.
It's true.
Yeah, but again, this is a planning tool for
Yeah.
future,
Yeah,
this
right.
is our vision, right?
Yep.
It's not, I
Understood.
understand that, right? So when you look at the planning function of the planning board, this is how we're envisioning it. So I think we need to zone to how we want it to be.
And in.
But it is helpful to think about that. It won't be applicable to redevelopment projects. I hadn't thought about that as a
Yeah.
Yeah,
factor.
but maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe, in our kids' lifetime. Like, this is the vision that we're having, and we want this to be a buffer, and eventually through turn and it happens, it gets to
Sure,
that.
but the math may not work on
CB light side and rear, footnote 4, increased to 100 feet when abutting
Okay,
resident. Yeah, so an acre's 200 by 200. So if you have residents on both sides, and you apply a 100-foot setback, you have zero mathematical opportunity to put a structure on.
But we have IA that has, that,
Exactly.
so we have IA right there. Yeah, like, so again, last, Lockheed to take, we'd like to have your
Yep.
feedbacks for your specific area, but I'm thinking the other areas, like on Turnpike, which you go from residential to
Exactly. Like,
IA, and we're gonna put
the
this.
100-foot would be fantastic on River Neck Road.
Right.
If that
Right.
were a new construction, right. Turnpike IA gets smaller. Again, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but depending upon where you envision applying this, you may want to consider differentiating between lots an acre and under and an acre and over, something to that effect. If you're truly trying to apply, future dimensional standards. If you apply the COID, then for all practicality, it doesn't matter what the traditional dimensional table states.
Yeah, but that has the convenience that it puts us in a much better position to work out the details of the development, which is part of the reason COID exists. The one place that would grab you, I suppose, is if you actually had a vacant lot. It would be kind of hard to apply COID to it, because there wouldn't be any previous development. And that's the one case where it might get touchy.
All right, so do we want to discuss COID applicability?
Yeah.
All right, so COA, just for those at home who don't know what that stands for, is a Community Enhancement Investment Overlay District. And it's currently applicable in CA, CB, CC, CD, and IA zoning districts. Move to the next slide. And this is, I just kind of cut and pasted the purpose and the intent, just because I think it's good for everybody just to kind of understand the whole reason why we have this. I'm not going to read, go through each one, but I think you guys can all read it. And assuming that we feel that it's applicable, we went through and made the following recommendations. Again, the ones highlighted in yellow are the ones we flagged that we'd like to discuss. But I think it's good to look at all the dimensional requirements. Maybe we can start with whether or not we feel COA is applicable. Anyone have any thoughts? I know, Mike.
Yeah.
You felt strongly.
I felt that it made sense to have it applicable.
Mm-hmm.
And what specifically do you feel? Like, why? You wouldn't mind elaborating?
Because I think in this area that we're trying to come up with, we're likely to run into a lot of different situations depending on what we designate as CB light or whatever we're calling it. And I think we're going to want to have the maximum space to adjust what we do, and COID lets you do that. COID really does give the planning board more leverage if it's applied.
And I guess if you read the purpose and intent of the COID applicability, I mean, it seems to me that the things that we're trying to be achieved are still valid for this Kate's Corner area. I mean, we are trying to encourage high-quality development, protecting and enhancing the value of real property, providing, encouraging aesthetic enhancements, encouraging appropriate site design. I mean, encouraging entrepreneurship and expansion of small business and the village character. I feel like that's exactly what we're hoping to achieve in Kate's Corner.
I don't disagree with that, but my question still becomes, practically speaking, what does the overlay give us that the underlying zoning that we're now creating? I get that it makes sense for areas where the underlying zoning has already been done and it doesn't necessarily reflect the flexibility that we want. But we're now designing underlying zoning areas that we can design that flexibility into. And so I'm trying to figure out what this overlay gives us that the underlying zoning that we could create doesn't.
Well,
And-
I
and the
think it gives us a
flexibility-
mechanism that we're already familiar with and we apply in a lot of other places.
But we can only apply it if the applicant comes in under the overlay. If they
Right.
come in under the underlying zoning,
then
we
they
have
have
no
the
flexibility.
Well, do they really? No, there are limits in here in your setbacks and in your layout that they're not going to have unless they invoke COID. But in order to invoke COID, they're going to have to be willing to negotiate perhaps some other things that they might have by right. I mean, that's the difference.
Right,
I
but
guess-
we've encountered quite a few projects since I've been on the board where they don't come in the overlay. They come in the underlying zoning, and we lose that flexibility that the
Well,
overlay would have given us.
We don't lose the flexibility. We never had it in the first place. Again, the flexibility I'm talking about is not the flexibility to do something that the underlying zoning already lets them do. It's the flexibility to do something that they might not have been able to do, but in exchange for some other concession to us. Anna, can you give an example, perhaps?
I mean, I think a good way to look at this is, many of the recent projects that have come in, they didn't need the dimensional relief that COID provides. They could design their project, or were willing to design their project to be dimensionally compliant. Many of the CB districts and the conflict districts, by definition, are non-compliant with zoning soup to nuts. So they're not going to be able to comply with your new dimensional table, which means one of two things. Either your new district has some sort of special provision that allows for flexibility, which you'd have to further define, or they're going to come in under 195A pre-existing non-conforming structure, or they're going to be required to go to the zoning board for variances. So the COID keeps it all with the planning board, and it's designed to provide dimensional flexibility primarily for redevelopment where nothing is compliant today. So like 270 Billerica, not really a good, they literally had, 3+ acres, they could design to comply dimensionally. So it's not, I'm trying to think of other projects. 191 Chelmsford Street didn't need any dimensional relief. That's why I think it's really important, before you get too far down the line on uses and dimensional, beyond Kate's Corner, you begin to look at where else you may apply this.
But maybe we take this as a, I don't know, like, I find that the COID applicability, like, why don't we look at it holistically for all these zones, look at what properties there are, what really doesn't comply, because I feel like part of the problem, at least, like, we have our zoning, we have our use, we have our dimensional requirements, but then half the town is under the COID. So then what's the purpose of trying to plan how we want things if we're just going
So
to
this-
provide relief? So I'd like to
The
maybe
C-
look
the
at.
COID is not designed to provide relief. What it's designed to do is provide an opportunity to repair damage that was done by historical development. So take Kate's Corner, that CB property, the building is shifted all the way to the left. It's not centered. So with COID, they'd have the dimensional flexibility to propose something that was more centered, and the planning board has the ability to also grant the dimensional relief.
Potentially in exchange for something else that we
What do
want.
What do
Exactly,
we get
so
for
COID,
what? Like,
COID is not intended to be applied to compliant lots. It's designed to provide flexibility for lots that are non-compliant size-wise and dimensionally, and provide a flexible mechanism for redevelopment to assist in helping the planning board work with the neighborhood and developer to make it better than it is. Not going to be perfect, because it's not new development. It's usually redevelopment.
so what, and do you say, and we get something in return, what do we typically get? Because, I don't know, all the projects that I've seen come through, like, it seems like the town doesn't get
Well,
much of anything.
The COID bylaw specifically says, in exchange for the flexibility and expedited permitting, the town will require higher quality architecture, site design, connectivity, and community benefit. So that's codified in the COID. It's a carrot and stick approach.
So most of
I'm
most of the projects that we've seen under the COID overlay have been in the IA district, where, like you said, we don't need that dimensional relief.
Not in the 129
Evan,
area.
Right, but
was
what
the
are some of
CV
the other ones that
Was the
it could have been
CVS
applied?
So,
project COID?
no,
It wasn't, okay.
no.
I
So-
don't remember
so
whether it was or not.
The COID acknowledged that, again, much of the commercial industrial properties outside of 129 are non-conforming. The fact that the market hasn't submitted applications is a reflection on there just isn't, once you leave like the 129 area and you leave the center, there's not a lot of market pressure. But the tool is there. Otherwise, what you're gonna have is, you're gonna have applicants coming in and struggling with, how do I design a project such as CB and Kate's Corner? Like, what's the regulatory strategy the town is trying to push them towards? Most developers want to design to comply. You can't design to comply in Kate's Corner. It's just mathematically not possible. So they're gonna leverage the grandfathered status.
Yeah.
The COID says, we don't want you to leverage a grandfather status. We come up with some customized dimensional requirements designed strategically for redevelopment sites to make it better than it is now. It's never gonna be perfect.
No.
So it creates a process whereby the developer is voluntarily submitting and understands that it's a give and take, it's a discussion. That's the power that the planning board holds, is that if you treat the flexibility process, you can call it waivers or whatever, that's very powerful for a developer, because now they know they don't need to design to comply. There's some reasonable flexibility, understanding that all of these lots are difficult. They're challenged with existing conditions, abutter conflicts, first-generation development. There's little or no stormwater on these sites. There's no landscaping.
So the benefits of the overlay probably won't be seen in most of our IA zones.
Not in the 129 area. But
It
if
would-
you go IA up in North Chelmsford.
Right, North
those-
Chelmsford.
yep.
But in the zones that we're creating now in CB, and it's likely that we would see the benefits of the overlay. We just happen to not
Correct.
see them
Correct.
in most of the recent larger scale
Correct,
projects.
right,
Okay.
right. So another way of looking at it is, if you truly want to encourage redevelopment that results in improvements and repairs, the COID is an incentive. and it can be designed to provide those incentives for the developer and for the board and for the community.
But in most of the smaller properties, not the larger ones that we've seen.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
And just from my understanding, if someone goes in with like if we didn't have the COID and they say, okay, well, I'm gonna go in because I've got a pre-existing condition, and they want to redevelop, do they have to stay on the same square footprint?
No, what they'll claim is that the existing conditions, it has a 5-foot side yard setback.
Yep.
And I'm proposing to maintain a 5-foot side yard setback. In other setbacks, they may change them, but they can claim grandfathering for
If they're
existing
gonna
conditions.
maintain they'll maintain
Right.
the 5-foot.
Right.
And we don't have, just so I just wanna make sure I understand the benefit. Versus if it was under COID and say the zoning required 40 feet setback, we don't have the COID, the new developer can't say, well, I'll propose a 15-foot setback. Is that what you're saying?
They still can, because 15 is better than 5. So under your scenario, 15 is like more akin with COID
Right,
strategy.
well, that's what I'm saying, like, I'm just trying to say, like, if we didn't have COID, then we wouldn't have that flexibility of saying,
Correct. Without COID, they would be
can't-
forced.
forced to do
they would be
5.
Forced to do 2 options.
5
Grandfathering or seek
40.
variances from the zoning board.
okay, or complying with like the 40-foot
Right,
setback.
right.
Versus if we do a COID and it's currently 5 and they want to propose 15, we can say, yeah, that works for us.
Yes.
And it makes it better. Okay, I think that, I just wanted to make sure I understood the benefit.
Yeah, it's a good conversation.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to keep going
So
down?
we want to still, so is everybody, I guess, we all in agreement that we proceed with the CO, like?
What I would
as
do is,
part of the COID?
I would suggest like each of you grab somewhere in your travels, pick a site on GIS and maybe run some mathematical
That was my next,
numbers.
that was my next thing out
Yeah.
of this. I wanted to ask you.
I can certainly do that as
I
well.
wanted to look at, again, specifically Kate's Corner, once we finish all the dimensional requirements and run, because there are not a lot of lots
Correct.
that we're thinking. And I think that's further on the slide deck, but if we can do that specifically for Kate's Corner.
It just as an operating
an
example.
exercise.
An operating example, yeah, because I'm a math person, so I like to see the numbers. This is conceptual first, and then we can go
Yeah.
to reality. That works. Okay, so let's look at the COA site. No, go back to COA. All right, do you guys all have,
So I'm assuming depth would be NA on this one?
yes, so we're
Yeah,
gonna
we
change.
didn't know what to do, so let's call it Annie.
Yep. And then would you, so I'll do NA for all of that.
Those 3.
Yep.
I mean, interestingly, it seems like the by right, there's not so much distinction between the CB and the IA
Right.
on the dimensional requirements, which is,
Yeah, and in particular, worth noting here on the proposed COID numbers, that a lot of the ones in this new district have the 6
Footnote.
footnote, which
Change
would
that.
put us in a position to make much bigger adjustments to the setbacks
Well, one of
than
them's illogical.
with the 4 that exists in IA. And I think that's important because we just really don't exactly know what we're going to see. I mean, this is a sort of a transitional district, and I think the variations in situation that we're going to see may be considerably greater than, as Evan pointed out, over on 129. I mean, that's the idea. But we had a lot of conversation about that.
And again, like one of the things, like the minimum yard requirement, 60 feet for the front. Like, we wanted it to be again, a
Yeah.
little bit more greenery, a little bit more like neighborhoody.
Yep.
But again, this is all up for discussions.
So I am going to propose, if people don't, I don't know what people think, but I would like to, I feel like we just got this last night, and we want to leave time for the neighbors and for Lockheed to give us their feedback if they've had a chance to look at it. I think I'd like to think about it in terms of specific properties in town, as you suggested. And I don't feel like there's urgency. I don't think that we're in a big rush to approve this, so I might want to just keep going down this rather quickly and then look again quickly at the use table.
Yep, I
And
put
then
the
move
use.
along.
Yeah, I re-put the use table in here, which is what we discussed last time. I think there was still some question we had.
Right.
And a couple errors.
And did I have a couple of errors? Okay. See, let's-
On the dimensions that you had up there,
The
there is
minimum
one
yard
mistake, I
requirements?
think.
Oh.
I think I just heard Joel mention it
Only
too.
one?
Oh, okay, which one?
The side by right, 32,
Yep.
should not have a 6 next to it. Is that the one you
Yes.
noticed? Yeah.
Oh, did I copy? I probably copied. one of
Yeah,
them.
it needs a 6.
I think you want to look at the footnotes in general.
Yeah, you can't have a 6 on that 32.
Right. And I don't know if you want to
Because
go to
you'd
a
be decreasing it
percentage
to
or-
25 feet, not increasing it to 25 feet.
I think the numbers themselves are okay.
Yeah, the numbers are good.
Yeah, I may have
Just you
copied.
need to take the
Right,
footnote
right.
6 off of that.
So this is COID side 32.
Side by right, 32.
Special permit 20.
And if we're,
Take the
if I
footnote off of
understand Evan
that,
correctly,
32.
then you also
Go for
want
20.
you also want to reconsider the footnote 4.
Which one, Joel?
Footnote 4, which goes with the side and the rear.
Yeah, I wouldn't apply that to the CB light.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think just the footnotes need to be.
So that pulled,
re-examined.
hold on, so that pulls over from the dimensional. So footnote 4 over here, increased to 100. So we got to remove it from, go to the back of the other slide. We need to change it from the other one. That's why that's pulling at the 4.
Okay.
So let me remove it from there. So we don't want to increase it to 100 feet when abutting.
We should,
Look at it.
we should.
You
think
should look
about
at it, but mathematically, it's not going to work for
Mathematically, yeah.
most sites.
So I'm going to highlight it then, if you don't mind.
So then would we want to take a different number than 100 feet?
Right, we may have a different. Or we may get rid of it altogether, because if this is meant for to be abutting residential, do we get rid of it altogether? Like, do we need anything that says if it's abutting residential, why don't we just zone it appropriately
Right.
Yeah.
with the right, so that's
Makes
the other,
sense.
like, yeah.
Okay.
But again, I think this is important that we look at with all the lots we want to identify that would fall under this, which I think is a separate project
Yeah.
that we all need to
Well,
do.
I think you may want a footnote of some kind, because like you mentioned, it's going to be fine. Typically, you'll have residential on one side and you'll have non-residential on the
Right.
other.
Yeah.
So you still want a footnote that whatever distance you're putting may increase on the residential side.
Right.
So that would shift something a little bit closer to IA than from residential potentially.
Okay.
So I think we just want to think about what we think those.
Can have a bunch of lopsided lots.
All right, so, is there anything else that,
I think that's a good starting point.
all right, so now going back to the use table.
So sorry.
You said you found some mistakes here?
Yeah, on 22, commercial. The bank with drive-through and without drive-through, I think you reverse those.
Oh, yep.
And then 38, the parking lot accessory use. The no in this
Yes.
zone should be planning board.
Planning board.
And that actually should be parking lot principal use,
Yes,
Which one? This is number,
38.
38.
Parking as an accessory use is currently allowed.
okay, so this is principal use. We want this to be PB.
PB, yeah.
Did I, okay, and then this is
Can I ask
principal
a
use.
stupid question? What is essential services?
This is
Utilities, basically.
Okay.
And then the parking lot in industrial principal use needs to be changed to.
Which one are you talking about, Chris?
The last in industrial
Oh, the
parking lot
accessory
accessory
use?
use should be changed to principal use.
Well, that was the one where we didn't necessarily want to have it as a principal use, but we wanted to extend the sort of
Proximity to the.
proximity
Oh,
of its
yeah.
accessory
Oh,
use.
proximal to.
So I don't think we want to, so I don't know if that would be a footnote
Yeah.
to an accessory use to say, in this case, it.
That's
we're
right.
gonna allow it to be.
Well, in that case, keep it as an accessory use
Yeah,
with a
but just-
footnote.
Yeah,
What's the principal use for this
Within
property,
X number
but
of
it's an
feet from the
accessory use for
principal
another
use.
property
I
nearby,
don't think we
right?
want to go principal.
Yeah,
That's what was discussed.
yeah,
Okay.
Did you get that?
The bottom one is accessory.
yeah.
Yeah, accessory with a footnote that it extends
With the
proximity to
definition
the
of-
principal use.
We'll fill in a number.
Yeah.
We'll figure out how to say that better. And that's PB, correct?
Yep. And then I had a question about the health club one. I couldn't remember what that footnote was.
Is that the-
31 on commercial.
Why, that's how many little,
That Roman numeral one, I couldn't remember
it's
either.
7, it's 8?
Yeah.
Special
7?
permit, 7 or 8?
8.
8, special permit from the planning board shall be required if more than 10,000 square feet
Yeah.
gross floor area is devoted to business use on this premises. Is there anything larger
So
than
if it's
10,000?
smaller, it's by right, but if it's bigger, then
Bigger.
it's special permit.
Yeah.
Got it, that's right.
We did that a couple of spots, I think.
I like that. I like that footnote.
Okay, so parking lot, so down under industrial, parking lot, accessory use, that's PB, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, then we have principal use.
I don't think we're gonna even
Don't
list
have
principal use.
Huh?
We wouldn't have a parking lot principal use.
Well, hold on.
Not in industrial.
Not
In
industrial, commercial
yes.
parking lot principal use, you maybe just change.
It was my mistake. But what we agreed to was, just as you have it, parking lot accessory use with a footnote.
Okay,
Okay, on both, even
Yes.
in commercial, okay,
yes.
okay.
This is 38 again?
Good, because I
Deja
can't, I could,
vu.
no, because, listen,
We've covered this.
I was worried about trying to figure out which form of principal I had to
Yeah.
use, which was,
Right.
so I'm glad, that's a lot easier. I like accessory,
Okay.
I can spell that. And it's PB.
Like groundhog.
Yes.
Yes.
Keep repeating.
Okay, I think we should
Okay,
let other people speak who would like to speak,
do you want to continue?
and then maybe go to the parcels to rezone at the next meeting, if
All
people.
right, that's fine,
Yep.
that works.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak, and/or from Lockheed? Of whom you are public, I guess, so.
Good evening, Ann Soboleski from Prince Lobel on behalf of Lockheed Martin. We've just seen the proposed dimensional requirements, so we do appreciate the opportunity to take that back and take a look at it and come back to you with, any specific comments that we might have. I don't believe that we have an agreement yet for the Maxwell's property. That is still something that is in process.
Okay.
So just to give you that update.
Great, thank you.
Did you have any feedback on the use? Because you sort of saw that all happening before you last time. Now you've had some time to give it a little bit of thought, so.
Right,
Any
I don't
comment
think
on
we have any concerns about the uses. I'm a little bit confused about what just happened with the parking, but as I understand.
We are too, but
I think we're
As-
going to find a different way to describe it
Yeah, I,
that fits the use that's being discussed.
right, and I think I've seen in some other towns, I think Wayland has something to the effect of, accessory parking is permitted if located within a specific number of feet of the principal use. I don't know that they have it in their table. I think they have that as a footnote or some other component of the parking.
Oh, maybe that's a good
But that's
way,
a
yeah.
different way that they do it there, so,
Perfect.
thanks.
I'm going to take my notes off.
Nancy Arroway, 65 Littleton Road. Sorry, guys, I have not much voice. As you're having this discussion about setbacks and sizes, what I'm hearing is that you haven't yet decided all the areas that you would consider applying this to. And it sounds like some of those areas would currently be commercial and some of those areas would currently be industrial. And they have very different sizes today. So those commercial areas that might get converted over are going to be real small compared with the dimensions you're looking at, whereas the industrial areas that you would consider converting over are going to be very large compared to those sizes and setbacks. So it's a balancing act here.
Yeah.
Anyway, because of all that, I would encourage you to identify the potential areas for application and then do an analysis of your dimensional tables against all of those areas before you settle down.
Right.
So,
Got a lot
that's
of
all.
work to do still.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I do have a question for Evan. On the COID, can that, to Nancy's point, can that be applied? Does it have to be applied to a zone, or can that be applied to an area? Meaning, if we look at like 129 Turnpike, which those lots are bigger, can we exclude COID from that and only apply it to the areas that have like more smaller?
Yeah,
We already do, to some degree.
yeah, you can treat small lots and bigger lots differently within COID, or not apply it at all.
Like not apply, like for instance, like we may, if taking this back to, when we look at, like say we look at Turnpike or River Neck Road or whatever, I'm just throwing out whatever, and we see that these lots are all big and, they're different. We don't necessarily need to apply the flexibility of COID to that. So we don't do that overlay there, but we do it on Kate's Corner, because that's where we do need that type of flexibility. We could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And or
That's
North Chelmsford.
Yeah.
I mean, like River Neck and 270 are much different than the IA properties on Turnpike.
Right. On the other
Turnpike's the
side.
conflict area,
Yep.
so,
Right.
yeah, you can pick and choose. You just have to come up with some rationale as to how to define that using zoning text.
Yep.
And that would be a modification to the SEOD.
Yeah, it'd probably be at a minimum, be a text change. The mapping may get complicated, so if we could do it via text, that'd be a lot easier.
I mean, could we do it based on lot size?
Yeah, you could do it based upon lot size. Yeah. I mean, I think we're looking at, lot size and then areas of conflict.
Right.
And then zoom in at those areas of conflict and really see what's going on.
Right.
What's the scope and scale of the conflicts? Much of the conflicts may be resolved by the use table amendments.
Yeah.
And then dimensional doesn't become as sensitive.
Critical, yeah. She's back.
I'm back. Yeah. If you're considering applying this to Turnpike, consider that the Bayard that applies to, the Bayard overlay that currently applies to Turnpike does not permit general businesses. So a lot of the businesses that you have worked into this new zone, if you applied it to Turnpike, would then be permitted on Turnpike. And there are much higher traffic producers,
Which is going to increase the conflict.
which is going to increase the conflict, not decrease it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not a placebo for Turnpike. It was specifically planned to not put businesses on Turnpike Road. Retail businesses, and traffic-generating retail
The
businesses.
CB light currently introduces
It would introduce
high
those.
traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Higher traffic anyway.
Right.
yeah.
Right. I think when we got to that level of detail, it'd probably be clear not to apply.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for every area that you consider applying it to, you're
That's right.
going to need to look at a chart, a comparison chart of what's currently permitted, what would be permitted with
Solving all the-
overlays.
What would be prohibited? that's
What would be
solving all the-
prohibited, yeah.
Yeah.
Solving the areas of conflict is not a one-size-fits-all.
It's,
CB light.
it's complicated.
But it's going to cover a vast majority of the area.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyone else want to speak about this? Okay. I think that then we're going to move along
Do
from,
you want to continue that to April 9th?
I think so. What else do we have on April 9th?
I'm not aware of any new public hearings. Still plenty of time to talk about zoning.
Good.
Are you going to need any more deliberation from your committee? I'm always up for
Is
another
there-
cup of coffee.
Maybe if there's a way to pull, like, maybe we can reach out to you about a way to pull the data of looking at lots, like information from lots easier than like looking manually?
Yeah, we can pull the, I can give you the entire assessors database, which would
Doesn't
you,
it seem like, I mean, it's going to be more helpful if we zone in on a property as opposed
I
to
think using the zoning
aggregating?
map is going to be easier, but if you wanted to crunch numbers
I
on
wanted to
the
crunch numbers, so it, like,
the
more like a-
assessors, you take the lot area, and then you can divvy up small lots, big lots.
Yeah, I mean, reach
It's not
out
going to give you much more than that, though.
Will it give me like dimensions and be able to?
No, you'll have to use a GIS for that.
And there's no easy way to extract that in Excel, like selecting.
I could ask the GIS manager if there's a way to extract it using GIS.
All right, let's take this offline.
But that would, yeah, I mean, reach out to.
I
like,
understand what you're
that's what
trying
I'm
to
trying
do.
to
Yep.
do, is to
Okay.
put it all into Excel, so then I can easily crunch the numbers, and then anything will fall out would be out of the area.
We don't need a motion to continue this, do we?
No.
It's just a discussion. Okay, next up, we have a conversation regarding the pedestrian bridge at 11 Cushing Place. And, so first of all, I'm going to assert at the beginning that my interest in this, I'm in a butter of like two and a butter, 700 feet away, so I don't think I'm a butter of any import. And my interest in this is more in terms of what we can learn from this experience or this thing that happened, however many years ago, in terms of not having, hopefully, something like this happen again. Like, how can we craft better decisions that keep things on a timetable or make them happen in a certain order so that we don't come back, 8 or 9 years later and say, oh, we didn't get that amenity that we were promised. So it's more of a kind of policy interest I have in this matter more than the specifics of what happened and what should be done about it. Although I think that also needs to be addressed. I'm not sure it's a matter for this board. What do you think, Evan? Would you?
I would say that The decision is fine. I think everything the planning board did was fine. Off-site mitigation or off-site amenities are challenges. Always have been and likely always will, particularly where the off-site mitigation requires town involvement.
Multiple parties
Right,
involvement.
right. And it's not just this project, there were several 40B projects that required off-site mitigation. And it's just problematic.
Not, like, so when it involves like off-site mitigation, let's take this project aside, like if you have a 40B example, if you can maybe elaborate what
Yeah,
specifically
so
you mean.
Beaver Brook Crossing, which is 50 Hunt Road. There's a side road, I'm forgetting, I think that's Hunt. If you go down Hunt to the first intersection, there is a bridge. That 40B was required to put a pedestrian connection over the vehicular bridge, very similar to Cushing. So it was codified in the decision. Developer was required to work with the town to get that moving. All that off-site mitigation requires, at a minimum, coordination with DPW. It requires a lot more than coordination. It requires an interest in wherewithal to coordinate and engage and advance the project. The developer itself is not always in a position to advance work off their property that involves the town. So, if you recall, many years ago, the town engineer used to attend planning board meetings. He used to sit right at the table.
Is that Bill Pearson?
Jim Pearson,
Jim
correct?
Pearson,
Yep.
Even
So it was a while back. Christine
Christina
Papadopoulos
attended a number of
did as
them.
well. I'm not suggesting that that is a surefire way to avoid these situations, but at a minimum, DPW's at the table. They're hearing what's going on, and they understand how it's going to be codified in a decision, and they may be able to provide comment to the board as to how to draft that. But at a minimum, they're aware. And they're likely, more than aware, they're likely an active partner in trying to achieve those off-site mitigations. Cushing Place and the 40B, DPW are not at the table. I'm not even sure that DPW included those in their recommendations. So again, it's, at face value, it's not something that DPW is asking for. And yet it's codified in decisions, which then requires DPW to take action. So that's a process issue, nothing to do with the planning board.
Yeah, but that process issue, from a planning board process issue, could be that when we want to add something like that, we need to have DPW sign off on it and have them review the wording. Like,
And
that could
maybe
be
have
an
the
internal
monetary
process.
The monetary, I mean, so, I don't know, I actually went back some time ago and looked at all those meetings for different, because I was interested in how they came up with the PILO, because I thought that was bullshit. So, excuse my language. But, and I don't remember about this, but my thought is that a lot of those PILO discussions were centered around amenities, that they weren't paying the, I don't know, the formula came up with 800,000, I think it said in that letter, and they paid 280. So that 525,000 or whatever it is, $1,000 that should have gone to the Affordable Housing Fund instead went for amenities that they were enabled to buy their way out of paying down for the affordable housing. So that was basically affordable housing that didn't get
Sure.
given because there was amenities given, and now I don't know how much of the affordable housing money that didn't get given was supposed to be for this bridge. I know they always said, I think, or they say they always said it was 15,000, but I don't think
So all
any
of that
bridge-
is, I mean, all of that's somewhat out of context, the,
Well, I mean, I've seen them talk about putting in a pipe to provide more water service, and that's $100,000 benefit
Agreed.
to somebody.
No,
Which
agreed.
isn't to the affordable housing needers.
right, so the decision that the board made at the time to prioritize
A pocket
public
park,
benefit
a
package
bridge.
that didn't include money towards affordable housing, that's just a policy decision.
Right.
And I think this board has had a policy discussion, as I understand it. When I meet with prospective developers, I am telling them that the board wants to see the affordable units built as part of the project, and they're not inclined to take the PILO. So that was a policy decision at the time with the planning board. Setting that aside, there's, for projects of that scope and scale, there's still opportunity to leverage other public benefits. In this case,
A bridge.
the bridge. The context of the bridge, and if you pay close attention to the meetings, you got to remember that the original approval and the public benefit package was negotiated with Win Stanley. The developer that actually,
Prior developer,
right, the developer that actually built the project had nothing to do
right.
with the negotiation. He basically inherited the original decision, the conditions applicable in the original decision. When Stanley and the current developer came in jointly asking for the modification to reduce the project from 70 units to 32, I think. And the planning board's decision said, okay, all of the applicable conditions in the original decision carry forward. What's important to remember is that there was little or no discussion about the pedestrian bridge. The reason for that was that the planning board at the time was spent all of its regulatory hearing time focused on traffic, drainage, landscaping, and architecture. The bridge was essentially codified as a pedestrian boardwalk.
Just like an add-on.
And it was, the only detail is what's on the plan. There was never any discussion about what kind of bridge, what's it gonna cost, what's the material. There's a decision in the planning board decision that simply says developer will coordinate with DPW. That's it. So on one hand, you could say the planning board handled that appropriately. Was the planning board literally going to spend their hours of public hearing trying to micromanage the bridge? Or are they simply going to handle it as a condition with the expectation
That it would
developer
comply
and
with
DPW will figure it out? So, I mean, I guess you could say a lesson learned is, yeah, maybe the planning board, should spend more time on getting some basic details. On the other hand, there's merit to saying, developer and DPW, you figure it out.
But you can only do that if DPW is in the room too, to,
Well, if they're not in the room, then it requires, me contacting them offline. I agree, if they're in the room, particularly if we're talking about off-site benefits, it's beneficial if they're in the room. I'm not suggesting that they absolutely need to be in the room. We could handle it offline.
right, but they need to be
They
part
need
of
to
the
be
discussion.
engaged. They need to be engaged, right.
Well, I mean, we could have them for things that relate to them.
Oh, absolutely.
Sign on in a more concrete way, instead of like DPW sign off on the plan.
Absolutely.
DPW
This-
like,
right.
okay, what about this?
But the key is what Chris is saying. You need to know up front that DPW is either interested, meaning it's their proposal, it's something important to them, or if it's a planning board interest, that they have the time, interest, and ability to engage, and to what extent. None of that was discussed, and at the time, that's how we operated. So,
So as a
So-
policy going forward, a recommendation would be,
I think if we're gonna contemplate, if a developer's gonna introduce off-site mitigation, or the board's gonna introduce off-site mitigation, we need written clarity from DPW that they,
or whatever board,
And the
yeah,
developer.
whatever it is, yep.
whatever this is, whatever, impacted, yeah.
I mean, it seems like Concom needed to also be involved.
Concom knew about it, because it's on their plan as well. When they approved that project, the bridge was part of it. Their permit has since lapsed.
John, you had
Yeah, I was
something?
just gonna, Evan, could we do something like if this similar situation comes up in the future, could we do something where we have, the board has the developer post a performance surety and account for an off-site improvement, or is that only permitted as part of the the actual development?
No, we can certainly do that.
I mean, it always comes down, then the big question is how much is the dollar amount, and you're
Right.
gonna have inflation over multiple
Right,
years,
so-
but I'm thinking if the person has to post a surety account with the town,
Mm-hmm.
they have some skin in the game, so to speak, they're less likely to then.
Yep, so that was contemplated. The challenge was that there was no detailed conversations. And when the developer came to me with their final occupancy, there was no reasonable justification for me to withhold final occupancy. What I did do is I got the letter of commitment.
Yeah.
At the time, which I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when it was dated,
I think it was 23.
that seemed pretty reasonable.
Yeah, no, reading it, they gave assurances that they were.
Yeah, so again, what I didn't know at the time, and I don't think anyone else knew, including the current developer, was what was the details of the bridge. And to this day, it's very clear that there is a great fundamental difference as to what the current developer envisioned building and what the town thinks needs to be built.
Well, I mean, to this day, I personally would love it. I mean, that gentleman, I forgot which one it was, described, they've done it in prior other towns and they've built it on top of circular pilings or I don't know what. Like, do they have plans for those? Could we see them? Like,
We've asked for plans to be submitted, and I think that's also a fundamental disagreement as to what a plan is.
so
Well,
whatever
it also
they have
seems-
for the ones they've built before
So
that they were built
Apparently, in the other towns, I think he mentioned North Reading, it didn't require any permitting. He did not need a building permit for it. It was essentially viewed as a pedestrian, light-duty pedestrian boardwalk over a wetland. This is not that. This is attached, this is not on private property, this is on public property attached to a town-owned bridge. So,
over a moving brook.
I think the starting points and ending points are vastly different. The lesson learned here is that it was, none of these details were ever discussed. And then you had the original developer handing off a project to a new developer. And then the third item is, you did not have proper engagement and coordination.
I have another question about the minor mod. Like, that doesn't seem like a minor mod to me.
It's minor in the sense that everything was being reduced.
That's
The
what-
size of the
that's what I
building,
wondered.
the pavement. So, under our working definitions of major and minor, it's minor. All the impacts, all the development is being reduced.
Okay, that's what I
And
figured.
just from a clarification perspective, like when the building inspector signs off on the permit, like the occupancy permit, I assume, like, this was an oversight that didn't,
No oversight, no oversight. So the way it works for every project is the building inspector asks all departments to do a final sign-off. I'm included in that on behalf of the planning board. I did a physical walkthrough, counted all the trees and the shrubs, parking lot striping, parking lot lights, anything above ground, I'm able to verify. This was not something that I thought could reasonably be withheld because the developer met their obligation. And with the letter of intent, I thought provided reasonable commitment based upon the circumstances as related to the original
Because
decision.
at that time, the town still needed to do work.
Correct.
And
So
they still do now, right?
it wouldn't be right to hold up permitting for the town
Correct.
delays.
This wasn't permanent, this was final occupancy.
That's why the
I think,
surety would come in in
The
this
surety,
case.
the surety was the first option.
Yeah.
The developer did not have a problem with surety. the other party involved was not engaged
Yeah.
at the proper level.
No, I'm just trying to, like, again, you had a good point, like, from a process standpoint. So, like, to your point, like, this wasn't, like, holding off on the occupancy wasn't reasonable, but we have this condition in there, so how do we prevent it in the future? Like, is there a process for that to, then it comes back and we ask for the surety? Like, can we create that as a process?
We can certainly do that. I think this all self-resolves if moving forward, prior to issuing approval, we coordinate directly with DPW.
But in case, again, we never know what happens in the future, right? New people and things change.
Right.
But in case for some reason, something falls through the cracks, can we have a policy that says if we get down to it and there's something that's just not there and it's really minor, but
You can put that right in your decision.
We had it recently on another project. It was one with Casey doing the engineering. There were a couple different phases.
That was
forget what-
the duplex project on
Yeah.
Groton.
On Groton Road, yeah.
on
There were a couple
Groton Road.
different
The
phases
top floor.
that depended on town or
So that
state
one we
work.
had a bond, so we had all the leverage. Subdivision requires a bond.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, there's certainly, your current decision says 100% of site improvements shall be complete prior to final occupancy, otherwise a bond is established. So your wording is good. Can we ask council to review it and
Tighten it up.
and update it? Yes, we can. Those bonds are usually, the number's usually determined by DPW,
okay.
unless the planning board's gonna start using a
Fine.
third
No,
party.
that's fine.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And that's the case where we would have needed to have included
Yeah.
them earlier in the process, that
Right.
they could determine the bond for that bridge.
The value, yeah,
And
the
then they
value,
would be
yep,
kind of
Right.
aware of it and buying in already.
Yeah,
right.
again, yeah.
Another side track point, I'm gonna get back on my horse about the Pilo, but we did discuss when we had an executive session meeting about it and decided that this board didn't want to we wanted to discourage Pilo, we wanted the units. We also said we would come back, circle around and look at the formula after this had been in place for a bit. And I would like to put that on the agenda, or maybe whoever's the chair next session, I would like to request that we put that on the agenda for either a work session or something. I think the numbers are very low. And I think as part of our effort to discourage people doing Pilo, it would be also helpful if the Pilo was more appropriate.
I agree.
So my suggestion is we ask David Hedison to
I think
maybe
that would be
provide a
great.
memo to the board. The PILO number is not that relevant if the board's, I wouldn't even call it preference, if the board is not willing to grant the PILO. It's not the developer's choice, it's the planning board's choice.
Well, I think one exception to not being willing to grant the Pilo, in my opinion, would be for the fractional shares. So if some,
Understood. Yep.
So if they're gonna build 12 and they should have then whatever.
Right.
The
But that
fractional-
fractional share would be a fractional number of the new total PILO amount.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
So if it was half of one unit.
yeah, I mean,
But the board does change
yeah.
membership, so
Yep.
having that PILO formula updated, I think
Well,
would
it's due
help
to be
in the
updated, no
future.
question. Yep.
When the board may turn over and maybe that board
Yep,
prefers the PILOs.
sure.
And certainly, you've seen a lot of inflation since 2020, 2021 in building materials and
Yeah, yeah,
costs,
and-
labor
and-
costs.
And
It's gonna go
I've
up
mentioned this
higher.
to you, and David will reiterate, the original methodology on the PILO was not the PILO was never intended to be able to create an affordable unit. It was a methodology, the difference between the market rate and the affordable rate. At the time, it was, $150 for ownership. So if you maintain the same methodology, then updating the numbers is very straightforward and easy.
I mean, maybe we should get David's input on, if he would think of it, if he, he works with a number of communities, if he has any other formulas that other communities use that he thinks might be also appropriate for us to consider.
Yep.
Okay. No new public
So are we-
hearings. So
Are
I
we
guess.
taking any specific
Right,
action?
the
I mean,
final, so the final sentence of, I guess, the lawyer's memo was we could either accept 15,000 or have,
I think
They
he
proceed
said,
with-
I think council suggested two options for the board. You could attempt to negotiate. Negotiate is within the purview of your permit, which would basically mean you would attempt to negotiate a resolution with the applicant, or you would be requesting zoning enforcement.
and what would that be?
That would be done by the building commissioner, which council indicates that there's more to it. Prior to Jose issuing a formal zoning enforcement letter, council would like to, fully review the file.
Right,
I think council's indicating that zoning enforcement is challenging in this particular case.
well, I wonder if it would make sense for us to request that we get an estimate for a plan,
So-
for a bridge.
So all of the background that transpired over the last 6 to 9 months
Yeah.
with the developer in town hall, while the developer never submitted any of that, DPW did do some, back of the napkin type of estimates. I mean, they have it estimated at least $200,000. So there's a fundamental disagreement
Yes,
as to
and-
not only what the bridge is made of, but how it's secured to the ground, to the earth.
Right,
And I think, and not for anything, I think it's time that we went down the legal route at this point, and we asked for enforcement, and I think we asked our attorney to look at it, because I think this is one of those cases where unless first of all, we have, one of the best law firms, right, that specializes in this. It's they're very well-known in the state, and I think in order for them, we can always negotiate, but I think they need to understand that we take this stuff seriously. And they made a promise to us, and I think at a minimum, we asked them as the select board to enforce the zoning, to look at this and talk to the attorneys. They're never gonna, if we keep on talking,
right.
we're never gonna go anywhere. And this is one of those times that I think this is the benefit for the town and for the residents of this town. It's worth.
So
We're going
what
down
may
that
make
route.
sense is, I can forward that to council as a planning board action. My suggestion is council would likely do a full file review.
Sure.
Get the full context and maybe report back to the board if necessary on their findings.
Would this be like, and again, is this a planning board or a select board decision, one? And two, would this go into an executive session if we're contemplating some legal action, where it wouldn't be a public input?
So the zoning enforcement would come directly out of a planning board decision.
Okay.
Basically, we'd be finding them not to be in compliance with the
Correct.
permit.
So how about we request that he review the file
Okay.
and get back to us, however, in
Sure.
whatever format he thinks is appropriate, whether it's an executive session or what, in terms of
Yep,
what
that
his
works.
recommendation is for us.
Okay.
And I mean, another possible negotiating point would be whatever it was, however many years ago, that they proposed supposedly 15,000, or that was their number, I don't know.
That number was never mentioned in planning board deliberations.
Okay,
It only
but, I
came up
mean-
when,
What if we took the value that we think it cost then?
Understood.
$2010 of the
Understood. There's a
200,000.
variety of methodologies to come to a number. There literally is
but
a
at the end of the day-
fundamental
And
gap.
there are some pitfalls here. In general, if you have two parties who think they've agreed to something, and it turns out that they in fact haven't agreed at all, and one can certainly get that reading from the attorney's letter here, then you're not in a very good position to try to enforce and collect. I think we really need to get our counsel to review it and make a decision,
Or make a recommendation.
make a recommendation on that. I mean, the question is, what did everybody agree to 6 years ago, or however many it was? And if one party thinks they're agreeing to a $15,000 bridge, and the other party thinks they're agreeing to a $200,000 bridge, you don't have an agreement.
Yes, but I also think that from a developer perspective, going into a long, lengthy legal battle,
It's not.
it's not
It's not what you want to do.
cost-effective for them. So they
No,
may,
it's not
they may
cost-effective
come,
for them.
so
It
they
may
may
not be
come up and.
cost-effective for us.
Right, but they may come up and up it.
Right.
Or split the difference. Right now, we're not even close.
Right.
So at this
Exactly.
point,
That's
we
my
have no
concern.
option but to go down the legal route. We have a good attorney.
Let's
that
get the analysis
represents us,
done. Let's get the analysis
And
done.
let's
Okay.
see where that is. But not doing something like that, you're just going to get the low ball, and you will continue to get the low ball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I
the important
totally
thing
agree.
is that it is a condition of the permit. It's a condition that has not,
$1,000 bridge.
well,
You need to,
well,
there's your problem.
We're in a circle. We're gonna hear back from the attorney.
Yes.
How's that?
Let's let him take a look.
well, I was just gonna, to going to what Anita was saying, that I think that we should be, very, very much following up on conditions that we
Yes.
make. But on the other hand, this is an old condition and one in which the town itself, in making that condition, didn't really
Didn't
follow
do a
up
good
as it
job,
should
right.
have. And so I think that's something that we want to factor into it as well.
Yes.
I think if this was a condition that this board had made 2-3 years ago,
Yeah.
then I would be all for full enforcement. I
Right.
think in this case, again, it's going to depend on what council says and stuff like that, but I think we want to take it with a grain of
We
salt.
need more information.
Okay, I'll advance that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. No new public hearings, no continued public hearings, liaison updates.
Got some from Concom yesterday. There was a really good watershed analysis that was presented by DPW and an external consultant of flood-prone areas. It included Evergreen, Deep Brook, which includes Dunshire area, Black Brook, which also includes Graniteville, which is the property we had the A&R for today.
The property what?
That we had the A&R for.
Right.
So it was a really good report. It might be worth talking to DPW to see if they could present it to us or at least get us the report, because it does show some flooding impacts to a number of our areas that we have projects in. And so
We
they
can
have
watch
proposed
their-
mitigations. All of them cost a significant amount of money, but there are some pretty good suggestions for mitigations. As Evan mentioned, there is an NOI filed for the Graniteville property, 2 single-family houses. Concom passed the Hildreth decision 4-1 with 1 abstention. So that one is closed for them. They did also sign a letter of support for the lighting bylaw for FinCom to include in the booklet. I think they'll be sending it to Jim. And they're also creating a subcommittee, Peter, Chris, and Carl, for looking at their wetland bylaws and regulations. So they're going to do some work to update them based on a number of their recent projects, and then have some public hearings and eventually get it to town meeting. So they had a pretty full meeting yesterday.
Robust.
Yep.
Along those lines, I was looking through something, maybe the old minutes for tonight, and somewhere I saw about the Board of Health was going to be reviewing their water guidelines and wanted our input going forward.
It's the gap analysis.
Yes, the famous gap
The famous
analysis.
gap analysis.
There's been a gap. That should be,
There's a
we
gap
should be
in doing the
getting,
gap
you should be getting a questionnaire from the consultant any week now.
From the,
Any
from
week?
the Board of Health's consultant?
Yes.
Okay, about the water,
Yeah, about the gap analysis.
okay.
That was the thing where they wanted us to send one or two representatives, and we said the whole board, and then they went radio silent.
We scared them.
I guess so. I mentioned it to the Board of Health.
You are?
I mentioned to the Board of Health that we had voted that we wanted them to come to the full board, and then said we hadn't heard anything from them.
Can you ask for an update at the
The
next?
the update is you'll be getting a questionnaire. That's the update.
Any week.
Any week now.
Not any day.
Okay,
Yeah.
You want to hear about the Community Preservation Committee at all?
Yeah.
So the Community Preservation Committee met early this evening next door, and myself, I was attending, Evan was in attendance, Joel also attended, and it was a brief meeting. Yeah, as in the audience. And the main topic was the Central Square Utility Suppression Project. So a revised financing plan was presented, which borrows $1 million and then uses $1 million in CPC funds. Also, counsel is available, and I believe, Evan can correct me if I'm wrong, the next step in the process, some questions have been raised over the last few weeks about, even though we have a local historic district in Chelmsford Center, does the project fall into one of the permitted definitions that CPC monies can be used for? And so the next step in the process is, I believe, the Historical Commission's going to take it up and consider declaring that the area is historic.
Did you guys
Because-
vote again?
Yes.
What was the vote? Just curious.
I believe, was it one abstention? I think the rest was yes.
this is for the 1 million, 1 million?
1 million, 1 million.
And that 1 million from CPC funds is to be determined whether it's coming out of historic or whether it's coming out of what, open space, or what would be the other alternative?
The bonding will be under the undesignated funds, and then
Yeah,
the,
but don't they have to be in one of those three categories?
it needs to qualify for one of the three. But how you fund it, I think, is handled a little bit differently.
Yeah, but which of the three would it be qualified?
Under historic,
Yeah.
Well, they're
Sure,
hoping.
That ain't open space.
So
I
if
think
not,
we've,
then-
Yeah.
I think the committee resolved that tonight,
Yep.
and then it'll be
Okay.
presented at FinCom tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, because we've asked, that's the reason why I was asking for the vote, because we've asked that that be resolved, and there
Okay.
was some question on, at FinCom.
Because I think one of the verbs that was restoring, that's a key thing.
Yep.
Because of some questions that come up, well, you're not really preserving a historical asset, and then there was discussion about restoring is also one of the key terms.
Like restoring the shed view? Or whatever. Okay.
So I have, not a liaison update, but John and I were at a meeting which apparently took a lot of people by surprise. There are 2 bridge projects happening in Chelmsford.
Oh, yeah.
They're replacing the Westford Street Bridge and the Gorham Street Bridge. So that's about a 3-year project.
3 years?
Well, yeah, phase 1 should take about 18 months before they restore, so it'll be total shutdown, and detours will be presented.
So 3A
Oh,
is
they're not
gonna
gonna go
be
half and half?
closed?
Not doing half and half.
Really?
Yep. Yep, total tear down. This will
Both
be.
of them gonna be down?
Yep,
At the same time, right?
yep, yep, yep.
So it's definitely going to have an
Don't shoot the
impact on
messenger.
those two.
I can see, I
I
can
would've
see you
thought they
guys.
were half and half.
Holy moly.
No,
Is it what a
they-
length
They
in the
did the
construction
one up
time?
on, by Hunt Road.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did Hunt Road.
So they did address that, because people did ask the question, and this would move a lot faster, and less of a disruption.
I don't know about that.
That's relative.
Hey, you don't live on 495, don't even talk to me about disruption. So, yep, there's, so anyways, it starts in April,
Holy, next month.
like next week.
They've already done the staging. I've seen.
Jersey Barrier's already out there
Yeah.
on Westford Road.
Yep, so next week, yep. So, not that, like, again, we knew about it, it's been 2 years that my husband's been attending meetings, but we knew about it because through the 495 expansion, we knew this was coming. But we were surprised, to be quite honest, I was surprised that it was happening this April, and we got the notice, because it was Paul, I believe, who sent us the
Yeah, well, actually, it
notice.
was the select board had a notice where they do those public
Yeah.
service announcements that just maybe about, was it like 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
So that really brought it to the public's attention. I mean, I thank them for doing that, but without that.
Without that, I wouldn't even know about it. And again, I live on 495, and I've been watching this for years. My husband's attended the meetings, and I was surprised by it. So I can imagine a lot of people, people do watch the planning board, so I just want to make sure people are aware of this. This is coming starting next week.
Okie dokie.
Fun times.
Okay.
Just a couple of other.
Yeah.
So FinCom meets tomorrow night. I believe they're doing recommendations on the zoning articles. Next Thursday, ZBA meets, Morose 40B and Ledge Road will both be on the agenda.
Morose and what?
Ledge Road. Monday, the 7th, the new select board, the reorganized select board will be beginning their review of the warrant articles. Chris and any other planning board members are welcome to attend that meeting to provide the board the presentation on the zoning articles. On Tuesday, the 8th, NIMCOG, working with the Housing Advisory Board, will have a virtual public presentation from 4:30 to 6:30. We should be getting the invite. I'll get that out to you. That's on the draft housing production plan, the goals and objectives and potential strategies. And I think that covers other items.
So by way of context, the housing production plan is something that NEMCOG is developing for the region, and then they're taking it down by community and asking the stakeholders in each community, hopefully, to buy in. And so,
Well, that's a regional effort, and separately, the Housing Advisory Board, working with NIMCOG, is developing a Chelmsford-specific
right.
housing production plan. Housing production plan is a creature of 40B.
So this presentation is the regional only?
No, that's the Chelmsford one.
Okay,
Sounds fun.
that's what I thought. Okay. Next up, we have the grant.
I submitted the expression of interest yesterday. We'll receive feedback within 5 days, which will then set the stage to do the full submission in, I think it's early June, it's due. Yep. So between now and June, I'll work with the board to further refine
Our
the
submission.
application. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Did everyone rather get a chance to look at the very old minutes? Probably should try and vote on all of them before the people aren't on the board anymore. So first up, we have the October 11th.
Well, do we want, are there any edits? Can we just approve them all, like, at once?
There are some edits.
Okay, that's just, like, why don't we do the edits?
Is it Chris's name spelled wrong again?
No. On the 11th, on October 11th, it looked like, Joel, you were marked as not present, but yet you voted.
How'd you do that?
Amazing.
The AI is having difficulty with
I noticed.
attendance and votes.
Omnipresent.
I totally missed that. I completely missed that. What was I voting on?
What is the nursing home overlay district that I was supposedly presenting? I don't know where.
I have no idea.
That
All right, so we
preparation
can't-
for
so we-
fall
so-
town meeting, the nursing home overlay district that Chair Connolly plans to present. I didn't present anything at town meeting. must have been Chris.
So
And
which minutes were those?
the first one, the one we're discussing currently,
okay,
the
so that's
October
the-
11th.
It-
I didn't present anything.
Not a
thought you
nursing
did.
home.
I thought you did.
Nursing
You
home?
said something, yeah, the thing where we were allowing, senior care, senior
adult daycare?
Adult daycare.
Oh, okay. But we did do that.
And we did do that.
I
and
don't
we just-
remember presenting.
I thought you did.
gonna
I thought I
present.
remember you- Okay, we'll have to go back and watch the.
All right, so we're not approving October 11th, obviously. We've got some going
As
back.
long as you have enough members the next meeting to approve them.
Yeah, we should. Just need a simple majority.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
All right, so table,
Okay, so we can table October 11th. Any issues with October 25th,
I didn't find any issues.
8th?
Yeah, like the 5th page under discussion, town manager Paul advocated for the easement as part of the larger brick walk, should be, I assume, Brook,
Brookwalk, yeah, 9 Acton Road.
in the Center Village Master Plan. Where does that stand?
That's the 25th.
That's the 25th, yeah,
For the 25th,
the second one.
okay.
So, yeah, the 25th.
Approve those as amended.
As amended, yep.
Yep.
And then,
Okay, we'll take a motion?
no, hold on, let's do all three of
Okay,
them.
fine.
No. Because there are some changes in the other one.
Next one?
Well, so why don't we approve that
Yeah,
as
just
amended?
approve
All right, so make a motion to approve October 25th
Second.
as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Of the people, so the only people who are present can vote? So it was, is that right, Evan?
Only people who were present at the meeting.
Okay, so that would be me, Mike Walsh, Mike Riesbeck,
At this meeting.
John, and Chris.
Well,
And
you-
Anita was present on
You
Zoom.
gotta be physically at that 11/8 meeting as well.
Right,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. So those were the people that were there at the, on the 25th, sorry. The people who were present. Oh my goodness, sorry. Mike Walsh, Mike Griesbeck, Anita, John, Chris, Joel, and I was not. And so those people all voted to approve those as amended. And then the next one is
November,
same people plus Anita
For November 8th.
for November 8th, correct?
and you were there,
Anita on Zoom, and I was there.
yes.
That one, I did see that your name was misspelled in the liaison reports. Anita's name misspelled. I did send that to Becky already,
Okay.
so.
Oh, everybody.
We're gonna have to go with
misspells
nicknames moving forward, I think.
my name. Yeah, I mean, everybody misspells my
Initials.
names. Oh, they dropped an A, dropped an N,
Yeah.
Okay,
that's fine.
so
signs.
take a
We need call
motion.
signs.
Make a motion to amend, to approve November 8th minutes, even without my name being fixed.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now December 13th. And I was not present, nor was Anita. So this is Mike Walsh, Mike Riesbeck, John Sousa, Chris, and Joel.
And on that one, the vote to adjourn should be 6-0, not 7-0, if we only had 6 people there.
Oh my God. Really counting everything? That's
All right.
amazing, Chris. You just are so,
And I did send that one to
Thorough.
Becky already.
Okay. Make a motion to approve December 13th as amended.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain because I wasn't there.
I also abstain.
Okay.
Okay. And then we have our next meetings, April 9th
On-
and 23rd.
So April 9th, we only have, what do we have?
Kate's Corner.
Kate's Corner and,
Reorg.
Maybe some administrative.
Reorg.
okay, so can we start at 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can we start at 7? Thank you.
Brad. Okay, I'll take a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Before we adjourn,
Did anybody say anything? Because I was late.
no, because we're still public, so I
Okay.
think want to express our thanks to Mike Walsh for his years of dedicated service on the planning board of exceptional duty, and will be sorely missed.
Thank you.
Here, here.
No, appreciate it. It's been great working with you
Thank
guys.
you.
It's
You
been
will be
great.
missed, Mike.
So it's been, I think it's been 6.5 years, right?
Wow.
3.5.
6.5?
Yeah, because I filled in at the end of 1 year, the year before, 6 months before the first election. So,
As associate or?
Ed, no, as a voting member. Yeah. Oh, he was sick. So, it's been great, and I appreciate all the different points of view and putting up with my crazy comments sometimes. So, Evan, thank you very much, and
You're welcome.
I always appreciate
It's been good. You're not going too far.
your backing. So, no, like I said, I'll be involved with the Vinyl Square Committee, but I am off this board. So, thank you again, and thanks for all your support, and good luck.
Miss you.
Thank you for
Thanks, Mike.
everything.
You missed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
Now.
So I did move
on
to
the
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second, then.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night.